Han Li survives a deadly ambush, then is hunted by Yaksha kings who turn his escape into a cruel game, forcing him into a desperate survival battle against near unstoppable demented minions. I really love making these videos, but I need your support to keep going. Please like, comment, or hype video so I don't have to give up on this dream. It was clear that these manifestations were the result of Han Li's own abilities. From the crown of the giant's head, black light flashed. Another azure figure flickered into existence and silently swept downward. However, the giant had already anticipated this. He raised his head and released an emerald-green beam of light. The beam was as thick as a barrel and incomparably fast. The azure figure was unable to evade and was struck directly. A miserable scream rang out as the figure fell. The giant sneered. At that moment, purple light suddenly shone from behind. It radiated outward as another inconceivable silhouette appeared. With a wave of its sleeve, hundreds of golden specks were released. The newly appeared figure was Han Li. At such a close distance, the giant immediately sensed the presence behind him, but it was already too late to respond. A sharp, rain-like patter sounded as all the golden specks struck the giant's back. Enraged, the giant roared. A massive green hand warped through space and appeared above Han Li, sweeping down with overwhelming force. Han Li remained calm. He spread his wings, intending to flicker into the void. But the giant coldly snorted and flicked 2 fingers. His fingernails shot off and vanished in a blur. In the next instant, 2 green streaks pierced through Han Li's wings at an inconceivable speed. The rumble of thunder abruptly ceased. Alarmed, Han Li attempted to change his movement, but it was already too late. Green light radiated from the giant's hand. Han Li felt the surrounding space tighten as if it had solidified into steel. Even with his powerful body, his movement slowed, making escape extremely difficult. In that brief delay, the giant's hand firmly grasped him. The strength of the green giant was no weaker than Han Li's. Seeing his strike succeed, the giant revealed a sinister smile and a violent expression. Green light surged through his hand as he exerted force, intending to crush Han Li alive. Han Li's expression changed greatly. He suddenly muttered an incantation. Azure light surged through his body, shining through the giant's grip. Then his body seemed to collapse, turning into countless specks of light. The spirit light gathered nearby, forming an azure talisman. It immediately shot into the distance. The giant was visibly surprised. 100 meters away, space fluctuated. Han Li's figure reappeared. Though his face was pale, he quickly regained composure and summoned the azure talisman back into his hand. At the critical moment, he had used the spirit form talisman to substitute himself, avoiding disaster and displacing himself to safety. After years of refinement, the talisman's abilities had far surpassed what they once were. At that moment, the giant spat out a beam of light and blurred forward, rushing toward the weakened Han Li. However, despite his disheveled state and pale complexion, Han Li turned and looked at the giant with a faint, cold smile. Surprisingly, this was not the original Han Li. The giant blinked, confusion appearing on his face. The Han Li before him suddenly emitted black light and rapidly shrank, transforming into a half-foot-tall black-haired monkey. It was the Weeping Soul Beast. During his previous attack, Han Li had secretly released the beast and had it assume his appearance. The silver tear wood spirit had been too focused to notice. With the cover of illusion and the substitute body, Han Li activated the high zenith invisibility talisman and quietly withdrew. Otherwise, given the wood spirit's powerful spiritual sense, such deception at close range would not have been possible. The green giant sensed something was wrong. Recalling the golden specks from earlier, his expression darkened as he reached toward his back. As a being of both tree and spirit, his body was extremely resilient, but his sensory perception was dull. He had not believed Han Li possessed any means to truly harm him. But when he looked at his palm, his eyes lit up. Several inch-long golden beetles lay there. What is this? Startled, the giant clenched his hand, then opened it again. The beetles remained unharmed. His expression changed drastically. From a distance, Han Li observed this, and his gaze sharpened. He issued a command through his spiritual sense. Instantly, golden light erupted across the giant's back. Half-foot-long golden beetles began appearing in large numbers. They spread rapidly, covering half of the giant's body and devouring it without restraint. Han Li watched calmly, though his mind remained focused. It was said that gold-devouring beetles could consume anything, but that claim originated from the mortal realm. Records also mentioned that wood and jade treasures could restrain them. The wood spirit race, being a fusion of tree and human, was unusual. Though their bodies resembled massive trees, it was unclear whether they counted as true wood-type treasures. As the test continued, the giant soon let out a painful scream. He struck at his back repeatedly, but the beetles continued feeding. His once near indestructible crystalline body was now being torn apart with ease. With hundreds of beetles gnawing at him, even his dulled senses could not suppress the pain of being devoured. Han Li felt a trace of relief. He waved his sleeve, recalling the weeping soul beast, then transformed into an azure streak and shot into the sky. Although the beetles could deal with the giant, Han Li himself could not withstand a direct attack. Increasing the distance was the safer course. Gold-devouring beetles. Fully matured gold-devouring beetles. You actually possess such demonic insects. The giant's voice trembled with fear, as if he were trapped in a nightmare. Soon repeated explosions sounded. Green light flooded the sky. Han Li did not look back. He continued fleeing at full speed. In a few breaths, he disappeared beyond the horizon. Moments later, a massive sphere of light rose from where the giant had stood and fled into the distance. Within it, the giant's damaged form could be faintly seen. A cloud of golden insects pursued closely behind. They followed for a time before eventually circling back. Their bodies shrank once more to inch-long size, moving in scattered formation. Even so, the beetles remained swift, cutting through the air like lightning. 500 kilometers away in a rocky region, Han Li sat cross-legged, his face pale. He focused entirely on recalling the beetles. A large portion of his spiritual sense had already been consumed. When the beetles finally returned, his body trembled uncontrollably. He collapsed backward, letting out a low groan. After a quarter hour, he gradually recovered and sat upright again. Controlling the beetles had been extremely taxing, nearly exhausting his spiritual sense. Fortunately, the damage remained minor. It was clear he could not use them recklessly for pursuit. Still, without that pursuit, the wood spirit might have noticed the deception and continued the battle. Now, after suffering severe damage, the silver-tier wood spirit would not dare to engage him again. Han Li touched the spirit beast ring hidden beneath his sleeve and slowly exhaled. Far away within a hidden forest, the silver-tier wood spirit Mu Rui sat beneath a massive tree in his giant form. One arm and nearly half his body were gone, but countless green motes surged from the forest into his body. His missing parts regenerated at a visible rate. Within the time it took to drink a cup of tea, his body was fully restored. However, when he opened his eyes, they appeared dim. He formed an incantation gesture. A hollow phantom emerged from the giant's body, condensing into a pale green wood spirit. The giant body then dispersed into light, transforming into a towering tree. In his original form, Mu Rui glanced toward the direction of the battle. How troublesome. This person possesses hundreds of gold-devouring beetles. If I were at full strength, I could risk killing him and seize control of the insects. But after suffering 2 heavy injuries, my spirit tree has been greatly damaged. If I face those beetles again, I may truly perish. It seems I must abandon pursuit. After a brief pause, he made his decision. He turned into a sphere of silver light and flew back toward Black Leaves Forest. Elsewhere, Han Li recovered a portion of his spiritual sense. Not daring to remain, he endured his lingering headache and departed once more as an azure streak. His destination was the southern skyline. 2 months later, he arrived above a barren plateau. After searching briefly, he found a secluded earthen mountain and burrowed into it with a flash of yellow light. Within the mountain, he excavated a hidden chamber 30 meters wide and arranged it simply. Then he consumed several medicinal pills and sat down cross-legged. 1 month later, Han Li opened his eyes. His spirit, mind, and body had fully recovered. Han Li did not immediately rise to his feet. Instead, he remained seated within the concealed chamber, quietly murmuring to himself. After a short while, he flicked his sleeve, and an azure ring appeared in his palm. It was the storage bracelet belonging to Xiao Hong of the Black Phoenix clan. Although he had suppressed her with the divine essence-fused mountain and spared her life, the storage bracelet was a different matter. It could be regarded as the price she paid for surviving. As both a demon cultivator and a direct descendant of a powerful clan, Xiao Hong's possessions naturally drew Han Li's interest. He briefly swept the bracelet with his spiritual sense, and a faint smile immediately appeared on his face. There were indeed many rare items within. To begin with, nearly half of the storage space was filled with demon beast materials, most of which were seldom seen on the market. As a member of one of the 7 great demon clans, her access to such materials was clearly far superior to that of ordinary human cultivators. In addition, Han Li discovered 8 top-grade spirit stones of different attributes quietly resting in a corner. Although this was the spirit realm where top-grade spirit stones were not as exceedingly rare as in the mortal world, they were still far from common. Even high-grade cultivators typically possessed only small quantities. Among them, one white spirit stone possessed a wind attribute, a rarity that caused Han Li to feel genuine satisfaction. Since arriving in Deep Heaven City, he had always intended to obtain such a stone. Aside from these, the bracelet also contained various magic tools and ancient treasures. However, none of them attracted Han Li's attention. Compared to his divine essence-fused mountain and heaven-void cauldron, these items were clearly inferior. Perhaps Xiao Hong herself had not placed much value on them, or she would have used them during their battle. There was also a small collection of medicinal bottles that drew his interest. After taking them out, Han Li began to examine them one by one. Most were healing medicines, while a few were intended to assist cultivation or served as rare materials for pill refinement. Inside one wooden box, he even found a zoysia dragon fruit. Without hesitation, Han Li removed it and stored it separately. Soon after, he came across a peculiar silver bottle engraved with the image of a black fire phoenix. A shimmering golden restriction talisman sealed its opening. The moment Han Li saw this, his expression grew slightly serious. He removed the talisman and opened the lid. With several soft popping sounds, 3 thumb-sized black pills shot out, circling once in the air before transforming into 3 small black flame phoenixes that attempted to flee in different directions. Han Li let out a low exclamation, but his reaction was immediate. A strand of grey mist shot forth, enveloping all 3 phoenixes. Within the grey light, the phoenixes slowly revolved. A flash of light followed, and they reverted into 3 pitch-black medicinal pills. The grey mist withdrew, and the pills dropped neatly into Han Li's palm. He picked one up between 2 fingers and examined it closely. Pills capable of transformation and flight were undoubtedly extraordinary. As his expression turned more focused, various legends regarding rare medicinal pills surfaced in his mind. Black flame pills. Based on their distinct characteristics, Han Li quickly recognized them. A trace of excitement appeared in his eyes. These pills could only be refined by the Black Phoenix clan, using their innate flames. Even master alchemists were unable to replicate them. Their refinement required the life flame of a Black Phoenix along with other mysterious materials. As a result, even within the clan, their production was extremely limited. Only cultivators at the deity transformation stage or higher could refine them, and even then, only 1 pill could be produced every 1,000 years. Given the rarity of high-grade Black Phoenix cultivators, the value of these pills was self-evident. Both humans and demons regarded them as highly prized treasures. More importantly, they served as an exceptional auxiliary medicine for breaking through to the spatial tempering stage. With 3 such pills in his possession, Han Li's chances of advancing increased by roughly 20%. This naturally brought him considerable satisfaction. After confirming their authenticity through careful inspection, Han Li suppressed his emotions. returned the pills to the bottle, sealed it once more with a talisman, and stored it securely. To break through to the spatial tempering stage, the key lay in unifying the 5 elements within the body. Having already cultivated the divine essence-fused light, Han Li did not need to worry excessively about this aspect. With the addition of the black flame pills, he could further seek out suitable medicines and secret techniques to improve his chances. However, his immediate priority remained advancing to the late deity transformation stage. By relying on a sufficient supply of medicinal pills, overcoming the mid-stage bottleneck was only a matter of time. The real difficulty would arise afterward. Once he reached the late stage, his current medicines would lose their effectiveness, and he would require higher-grade pills to continue progressing. Such pills were not common. Among them, the most well-known was the True Toad liquid. In fact, his decision to accept this mission was largely due to its connection to the spirit toad required for producing that liquid. After some contemplation, Han Li suddenly recalled the mysterious visitor who had approached him before his departure from Deep Heaven City. His eyes narrowed slightly. If matters proceeded as that person had suggested, he could obtain a considerable amount of True Toad liquid. Although he could not rely on the green liquid to produce it endlessly, it would suffice for a significant period of cultivation. After reviewing the situation carefully and finding no immediate issues, Han Li let out a quiet breath and set the matter aside. With a casual motion, he swept the storage bracelet once more and retrieved another item of great importance. It was a radiant feather. Shimmering with rainbow light, the rainbow phoenix feather obtained from the 2 women of the Ye clan. As Han Li gently stroked it, the surrounding air filled with multicolored light, nearly illuminating the entire chamber. His gaze sharpened slightly. It truly lived up to its reputation as the life feather of a true spirit heavenly phoenix. Even in isolation, it emitted an aura far surpassing that of any mystical bird from the mortal realm. Han Li stared at it in silence for a moment before opening his mouth and releasing a strand of azure white lightning. A faint rumble of thunder followed as the lightning condensed into a pair of small azure white wings. With a wave of his hand, the miniature thunderstorm wings descended into his grasp. After inspecting them, he frowned slightly. Each wing bore 2 narrow puncture holes. These were the marks left by the giant wood spirit's attack. However, after a brief examination, his expression soon relaxed. The damage was not severe and could be repaired without difficulty. According to the soaring sky beast's incarnation, the thunderstorm wings were originally formed from kunpeng feathers. However, they could not truly become a spirit treasure because Han Li lacked the ability to activate the wind-attributed worldly laws within them. For that reason, he had long sought a top-grade wind-attributed spirit stone. Now, however, circumstances had changed. With the heavenly phoenix feather in his possession, he could refine it into the thunderstorm wings. Unlike the kunpeng feather, the heavenly phoenix feather contained profound spatial laws. If these could be successfully integrated, the resulting power would be extraordinary. In future encounters with formidable beings like the silver-tier wood spirit, he would no longer need to endure their attacks and could instead escape with ease. After careful consideration, Han Li began his preparations. He took out 6 top-grade spirit stones, 5 representing the 5 elements, along with the wind-attributed stone. With his current cultivation, he no longer required external fire sources. Opening his mouth, he released a ball of silver flame, which expanded into a massive furnace filled with swirling silver fire. He cast the thunderstorm wings into the furnace and directed the wind-attributed spirit stone to follow. A surge of wind accompanied its entry. With a sweep of his sleeve, Han Li released a cloud of azure mist, revealing a large pile of materials and bottles, the supplementary resources he had gathered over time for this refinement. He added a bottle of quicksilver-like liquid into the furnace and began chanting softly, striking the furnace with a sequence of spell seals. 10 full days passed. At last, laughter echoed throughout the chamber. Han Li stood at its center, holding a pair of translucent crystalline wings. They shimmered with azure light enveloped in a faint rainbow mist. yet remained clear as water, almost imperceptible in his grasp. He had already tested their capabilities. They had indeed advanced to the level of a spirit treasure exceeding his expectations. Given that both the Kunpeng feather and the heavenly phoenix feather were materials of extraordinary origin, such a result was only natural. Having refined the treasure once more, Han Li felt a quiet sense of satisfaction at the outcome. Han Li cast the pair of translucent wings into the air, then opened his mouth and released a cloud of azure mist, drawing both the wings and the mist back into his body. Afterward, he retrieved the damaged bamboo cloudswarm swords and began to refine them, carefully restoring their spirituality bit by bit. A year later, above an unnamed mountain range deep in the wilderness, a faint streak of azure light cut across the sky. Within that light was an unremarkable-looking young man with his hands clasped behind his back. It was Han Li, who had already left the hidden chamber several months earlier. Once he had fully repaired his flying swords, he departed from the mountain's depths and immediately took to the air. Traveling alone, Han Li remained extremely cautious. As a result, he spent half a year in uneventful flight. The mountain range beneath him appeared ordinary at first glance. No matter how high he flew, the trees below remained short, almost like shrubs. Yet if he descended, he would encounter dense, lingering moisture. Depressions were scattered throughout the range, each filled with lakes of varying sizes. The largest stretched for thousands of kilometers, while the smallest measured only half a kilometer across. Even so, Han Li did not lower his guard as he passed over them. Unknown beings or powerful ancient beasts could be lurking beneath the water's surface. Since entering the mountains, he had already slain more than a dozen strange beasts that had taken the initiative to attack him. Among them was a massive eel from one of the lakes nearly at the deity transformation stage, possessing fierce water-based abilities. Dealing with it had required considerable effort. Half a month later, the terrain began to change. Two perfectly straight mountains, each about 3 kilometers tall, came into view. When Han Li saw them, a hint of joy appeared in his eyes. Their size alone was not particularly unusual, but one of the mountains was silver-white, its surface largely covered in crystalline snow that radiated an intense cold. The other mountain shimmered with a deep purple hue, covered entirely in maple-like trees whose leaves emitted a strange violet glow. The two mountains stood over 5 kilometers apart, yet aside from the silver snow and purple trees, they were almost identical. Since these two mountains are here, it seems the information was accurate, Han Li murmured to himself. With a flicker of light, he headed toward the snowy mountain. As he approached, fierce winds howled, carrying a biting chill that pierced to the bone. His expression shifted slightly, but a layer of azure light enveloped his body, allowing him to proceed without obstruction. Before he could enter the mountain, however, 2 streaks of light shot out from the densest region of snow. After a few flashes, they stopped about 100 meters in front of him. Han Li dispelled his flight light, revealing his figure. Hey, so it's fellow Taoist Han. I knew that with your abilities, a minor mission like that would pose no problem. One of the figures recognized him immediately and spoke with a smile as the light faded. The man had a pale complexion and appeared to be around 60 years old. Han Li recognized him as Old Man Liu from the Spirit Flight Hall, whom he had met when he first arrived at Deep Heaven City. Standing beside him was a frail-looking scholar with a gentle expression. So it's Brother Liu and Brother Ouyang. You arrived earlier than I did. It seems your missions were completed smoothly, Han Li said with a faint chuckle, making no mention of his near-fatal encounter with the Wood Tribe. Old Man Liu shook his head. How could our task compare to yours? I merely followed a group of golden guards as they cleared out a few small foreign strongholds. As long as I stayed cautious, there was no real danger. Han Li smiled. Aside from the 2 of you, have the others arrived? Old Man Liu beamed. Of course. This journey requires many participants. Although we expected that about half might fail to make it, nearly everyone we needed has already gathered. Come, I'll guide you. Then I'll trouble you, Han Li replied with a slight bow. He followed the 2 as they flew toward the icy mountain. After a short distance, the old man in front took out a jade badge and held it forward. A wave of white light surged from the badge, revealing a field of glowing white lotuses. Old Man Liu guided the light and entered one of the lotuses, which flickered and vanished. Han Li's eyes narrowed slightly before he and the scholar followed. A concealed illusion formation had been set up here, one so subtle that even he had failed to detect it. Ordinary ancient beasts passing nearby would notice nothing unusual. The three figures flickered several times before appearing above the mountain peak, descending in front of an ice pavilion. Nearby stood a cluster of ice structures in various styles. A man and two women were stationed outside the pavilion. When they saw the newcomers, their gazes immediately fell upon Han Li. The man was tall and broad, dressed in grey robes with a full beard that gave him a bold appearance. One of the women appeared to be over 40, wearing azure robes with an unremarkable appearance. The other was young, clad in green robes with a veil covering her face. When Han Li saw the veiled woman, he let out a soft exclamation. "Fairy Ying, I didn't expect you to accept the invitation as well." "What a coincidence," he said. The veiled woman smiled sweetly. "I knew you would come. After all, I am one of the initiators. A founding member. That truly exceeds my expectations," Han Li replied with a light laugh. She was indeed Fairy Ying, who had once invited him to cooperate during the Ascended Cultivators gathering. Although she had not been among those who directly approached him when he was invited, Han Li still considered the group reliable. As for who had initiated the gathering, he did not concern himself with it. His gaze shifted as he briefly observed the other two. They seemed somewhat familiar, as if he had seen them at the Ascended Cultivators meeting, though he had never spoken with them. All three were at least at the mid-deity transformation stage, and the older woman had reached the late stage. Han Li cupped his fists in greeting. The large man and the older woman promptly returned the gesture, not daring to show any negligence. Fairy Ying then invited Han Li to sit in the pavilion. After a brief pause, he shook his head. "I sustained some injuries during my mission and have expended considerable magic power in continuous flight. I need time to recover. If I recall correctly, there is still 1 month before the final assembly." Old Man Liu stroked his beard with a friendly smile. "Hehe, our oversight. Please rest first. We can speak later. The rooms on the far left are unoccupied. Feel free to choose one. Of course, if none suit you, you may construct your own." "Then I'll take my leave," Han Li said with a faint smile. After exchanging a few polite words, he walked toward one of the ice chambers and disappeared inside after a few flickers. As the remaining cultivators watched his retreating figure, a brief silence fell. The older woman frowned slightly. "Did Brother Han hurry to rest because his injuries are severe?" "It shouldn't be," so the grey-robed man replied, shaking his head. "His complexion appears normal. It's likely just a depletion of magic power." Fairy Ying spoke calmly. "That may not necessarily be the case. If Han Li possesses exceptional concealment techniques, we wouldn't be able to detect anything unusual. However, the fact that he arrived on time already proves that his abilities are far from ordinary. Even if he is somewhat injured, it should not affect our plans." Didn't fellow Taoist Yuan and Master Jing Yuan also go straight to their rooms upon arrival? Her tone carried clear confidence in Han Li. The frail scholar smiled. "That is reasonable. Although fellow Taoist Han is only at the mid-deity transformation stage according to my information, his abilities rank among the top 3 of our group." The older woman looked surprised. "Are you not exaggerating? He is only at the mid-stage." "Are you certain?" Fairy Ying replied unhurriedly. "Sister Zhao has been in seclusion, cultivating in Deep Heaven City these past years, and hasn't attended our gatherings, so it is natural that you are unfamiliar with him. Fellow Taoist Han has slain many foreign beings of similar cultivation and even captured several alive. He is quite renowned among the newly ascended cultivators. One of his abilities is especially effective against members of the Shadow Tribe. That was one of the main reasons we went to such lengths to invite him." "You mean he will be useful against those shadow insect beasts?" the older woman asked, understanding. Old Man Liu added, "Exactly. Otherwise they would be quite troublesome. If we expend too much magic power before encountering our true target, it would be a serious problem. The older woman nodded and said no more. The others soon took their seats and continued a brief conversation. Meanwhile, inside the ice chamber, Han Li sat cross-legged and closed his eyes. About 2 weeks later, a long, clear shriek sounded from outside. Although it was not loud, it was enough to rouse Han Li and the others who were resting. Han Li's brow twitched slightly as he opened his eyes. He blinked once and tilted his head, thinking for a brief moment. Then he rose to his feet and walked out of the ice building. In front of the building was a wide open space. At some unknown time, however, it had transformed into an icy hall over 300 meters in length. Numerous massive ice pillars supported it. Though the construction was crude, it shimmered under the sunlight, giving off a solemn and imposing presence. At the center of the hall stood a platform about 10 meters high, upon which a man and a woman were standing. The man had silver hair and a youthful, handsome face. The woman wore her hair coiled up, and her figure was full and well-proportioned, enhancing her striking beauty. Despite her bare, delicate, and flawless limbs, she showed no concern for the cold. Both of them were cultivators at the spatial tempering stage, with the man having reached the mid-stage. The long whistle had come from the silver-haired man. Below the platform stood 5 people, among them Fairy Ying and Old Man Liu. When the whistle sounded, Han Li and the others emerged from their respective buildings. In the span of a few breaths, more than 20 cultivators had gathered on the mountain. All of them were at least at the deity transformation stage. With varying expressions, they walked toward the hall. Han Li maintained a calm demeanor as he followed them inside. As soon as the group entered, many immediately greeted, "We pay our respects to Senior Ju and Senior Qing. These 2 seniors are here as well. It has been a long time." Han Li soon found an empty place and stood quietly without moving. The 2 who had previously visited and invited him were precisely the renowned Golden Guards, the man and woman standing on the platform. Although he had only spoken with them once, he had heard much about their reputation. If they had not also been ascended cultivators, Han Li was not certain he would have agreed to attend this meeting, regardless of the promised rewards. Senior Ju's whistle had already ceased. He smiled in response to the greetings and then spoke in a clear voice. "It seems everyone has arrived. Please take a seat. We will now discuss how to deal with the nest of blue-eyed true toads." As soon as he finished speaking, the woman beside him formed a spell seal toward the ground. At once the ice hall shone with white light, and rows of finely crafted jade chairs appeared through simple spell formations. Seeing this, the cultivators took their seats. The 2 spatial tempering cultivators on the platform also sat down. The silver-haired man swept his gaze across the hall and smiled. "It appears the number of cultivators who came matches our expectations. When we sent out invitations, we estimated that about 40% would be able to attend. The rest were unable to come for various reasons. Even so, we will now focus our efforts on eliminating the blue-eyed true toads. At that time, everyone will take what they need. You will divide the true toad spirit blood among yourselves, while we will take the 1,000-heart flowers guarded by the beasts. This arrangement is exactly as previously stated. Does anyone have objections? Of course, the distribution of the spirit blood will depend on individual contributions. It will not be divided equally. I trust none of you intend to benefit without effort." As he spoke, a faint but oppressive aura spread from his body, and his expression turned serious. The cultivators present remained silent, offering no objections. "Good. Since there are no issues, we will now discuss the specific plan. The group of true toads was discovered by Fairy Ying. Let her explain the details," the young man said, with a slight smile, turning toward the veiled woman. "Senior Ju, I will comply," Fairy Ying replied with a gentle smile as she stood gracefully. Her gaze swept across the cultivators as she spoke. "I will not go into detail about how I discovered the nest, but I can confirm that there are nearly 10 toads. Among them, 2 fully mature ones possess strength comparable to mid-spatial tempering cultivators. The others are roughly at the nascent soul level. These toads remain deep within their nest and rarely come out. If we attempt to attack them directly inside the environment, will put us at a disadvantage. She paused briefly before continuing. If that were the only issue, there would have been no need to invite all of you. The key problem is that two types of fierce beasts live nearby. One is the black blood ants, and the other is the shadow insect beasts. Individually, they may not be significant, but they exist in groups exceeding 100. If we wish to deal with the toads, we must first handle these insects. Black blood ants, shadow insect beasts. Upon hearing this, most cultivators began to whisper among themselves. Some even hesitated to speak openly with those beside them. Both types of insects were well known. If their numbers reached 3, they could already pose a serious threat even to spatial tempering cultivators. After finishing, Fairy Ying nodded slightly toward the silver-haired youth and sat down again. Senior Ju spoke calmly. There is no need for concern. Since we invited you here, we already have methods prepared. We only require your full cooperation. An old man wearing a bamboo hat stood up and bowed. Senior Ju, it is not that we doubt you. However, this matter seems quite dangerous. Could Senior explain the plan in detail? This old man was one of the few late deity transformation cultivators present. So it is fellow Taoist you. Please sit. Even if you had not asked, I would have explained, Senior Ju replied with a relaxed smile. The old man nodded and sat back down. The plan is simple. The two types of insects are troublesome, but we have acquired sandalwood crane incense. It has an extremely strong attraction to the black blood ants. As long as we light it from a distance, we can draw them out and eliminate them with ease. As for the shadow insect beasts, they are more difficult. However, we have borrowed a set of profound heavenly lightning flags. With 8 people operating this treasure, we can form a lightning formation to restrain them. In addition, we have invited fellow Taoist Han and Fairy Xiao, both of whom possess techniques effective against these insects. With your assistance in supporting the formation, the situation should remain under control. The remaining cultivators will join me and my wife in eliminating the true toads. What do you think of this arrangement? His voice was not loud, yet it carried clearly throughout the hall. When Han Li heard his name mentioned, his expression shifted slightly. He glanced around and noticed many gazes directed toward him. Among them was a woman in silver-white robes who appeared to be in her 20s. She had a delicate appearance and looked at Han Li with a gentle smile. Han Li returned the smile unconsciously and thought to himself, could she be Fairy Xiao? Does she also cultivate a technique capable of restraining the shadow insects? After that, several cultivators raised additional questions from time to time. Senior Ju answered each one calmly and in detail, leaving the group satisfied. However, Han Li noticed that the beautiful woman beside him had spoken very little from beginning to end. She merely stood there with a faint smile. This struck Han Li as unusual. He recalled that when they had invited him earlier, only the silver-haired youth had spoken, while she had remained silent the entire time. Could it be that she cultivates some Buddhist technique that requires a vow of silence? Otherwise, if she were truly deaf or mute, how could she have reached such a level? Han Li considered this inwardly. After 2 hours passed, no further questions were raised. Senior Ju began assigning roles. It was worth noting that aside from Han Li and Fairy Xiao, several cultivators present also practiced rare lightning techniques, making them suitable for operating the profound heavenly lightning flags and forming the lightning formation. All of those present were ascended cultivators or their descendants. None were native to this world. As a result, although their numbers were considerable, none showed concern over how the roles were distributed. Once all assignments were made, Senior Ju did not delay. He immediately issued the order, and the group of over 20 cultivators departed, flying westward. After flying continuously for 3 days, they finally arrived before a vast lake. At a glance, they could see a thick saline mist covering the lake, giving it a mysterious and obscure atmosphere. Many of the cultivators could not help but frown. In the wilderness, cultivators generally avoided entering such unknown areas. It was impossible to tell what dangers might be hidden within the mist or beneath the water. If ambushed, it could easily become a life-threatening situation. Without any need for warning, everyone slowed down and came to a halt before the mist. The silver-haired youth at the spatial tempering stage, Senior Ju, stood at the front and spoke in a clear voice. Fellow Taoists remain cautious. There is an unknown demonic bird hidden within the mist. Fortunately, their strength is not great. As long as you are wary of the acid they spit, there should be no serious issue. As for the mist itself, my wife and I will handle it. After speaking, the group paused and watched as the silver-haired youth opened his mouth and expelled a long, white jade bottle. It spun in mid-air, its opening aimed directly toward the dense white mist ahead. He formed a series of hand seals and quietly recited an incantation. The jade bottle immediately began to emit a bright glow. A dull, crackling sound followed, and from within the bottle an azure wind surged outward. At first, the wind carried only a faint blue light. However, after traveling about 10 meters, it rapidly intensified, transforming into a powerful gale. In the blink of an eye, it became a violent tornado. The mist covering the lake churned violently and was forcefully split apart. A clear path emerged through the dense fog. "We move," Senior Jew commanded. He and his wife immediately took the lead, flying into the opened path. The jade bottle hovered above his head, continuously releasing fierce gusts of wind to maintain the passage. Seeing this, the others felt reassured and followed closely behind. As Senior Jew had warned, after advancing roughly 5 kilometers, white birds began to emerge from the surrounding mist. Each bird was about a meter long with flat beaks and dark green claws. The birds clearly targeted the cultivators. The moment they appeared, they opened their beaks and released black ice arrows. Several cultivators shouted as they activated their magic treasures. Sword formations appeared and ancient shields materialized to block the attacks. When the black ice arrows struck these treasures, they immediately dissolved into black smoke, leaving behind numerous small holes where they had made contact. The cultivators controlling the treasures were visibly shocked. One of them quickly shouted, "Kill them immediately. Their acid can corrode our treasures." Hearing this, the others felt a chill in their hearts and did not hesitate. They unleashed their techniques at once. Streams of light and waves of energy surged toward the demon birds. Under the concentrated assault, the birds were instantly reduced to masses of flesh and blood, dying on the spot. Seeing how easily they were dealt with, the group relaxed slightly. These birds were indeed quite weak. However, after a quarter of an hour, strange cries echoed from within the mist once more. Another flock of white birds suddenly rushed out again, launching black ice arrows at the cultivators. Startled, the group hastily activated their treasures to defend themselves, then swiftly counterattacked and eliminated the birds. Yet just as the final bird was destroyed, countless more silhouettes began to emerge from within the mist. The cultivators grew uneasy, and several displayed clear signs of concern. Han Li frowned and released his spiritual sense into the surrounding mist. Bird cries echoed from all directions above, below, and on every side. Their numbers were impossible to estimate. Even for someone like Han Li, who had faced numerous dangers, this situation caused a faint chill to run down his spine. At that moment, Senior Jew's calm voice sounded from ahead. "Do not panic. These birds are merely probing us. After a dozen or so waves prove ineffective, they will withdraw." Hearing this, the cultivators steadied themselves and continued to activate their treasures, cutting down each incoming wave of birds. 13 waves attacked in succession. Finally, sharp cries rang out from the flock, and the birds scattered, retreating back into the mist. Relief spread through the group. Seizing the opportunity, they pressed forward. Half a day later, the mist gradually thinned and eventually disappeared. Their surroundings brightened, revealing a massive mountain rising from the center of the lake. The mountain was enormous, as though it extended upward directly from the depths below. The visible portions of the mountain were composed of green stone. Aside from patches of moss growing on its surface, there was no other vegetation. After stopping, Senior Zhu clicked his tongue and said, "This is the place. Haha, we owe thanks to Fairy Ying and her companions for discovering it." The veiled woman chuckled softly. "We only stumbled upon this mountain while pursuing a beast. It was nothing more than a fortunate coincidence." Senior Jew laughed, his eyes bright with anticipation. Indeed, without sufficient luck, Such a hidden location would be difficult to find. Moreover, we have confirmed the presence of true toads here. If this were elsewhere, it would likely have already been discovered. Let us begin. The other cultivators nodded, smiling. The true toad nest lies within a natural cave beneath the mountain. We will proceed according to our original plan. First, we lure out the black blood ants and eliminate them. Be cautious, although they are only grade 8 demon beasts. They possess the innate ability to pierce defensive shields and protective light. Additionally, their venom is extremely potent. If bitten, immediately take an antidote. Otherwise, your life will be in danger. After delivering this warning, Senior Jew flipped his hand and produced a palm-sized incense burner. In it, he placed a half-foot-long green incense stick. He tossed the burner upward, allowing it to hover and slowly rotate in mid-air. With a flick of his finger, a red spark ignited the incense. A thin trail of azure smoke began to rise from it. Hanley glanced at the incense burner, a trace of doubt appearing on his face. This sandalwood crane incense appears ordinary, and its scent is faint. Can it truly affect the black blood ants? He wondered. At that moment, the cultivators began to disperse and conceal themselves. Hanley also moved, ascending roughly 300 meters into the air. Just as he was about to perform a technique, a white streak flashed beside him, and a slender figure appeared. Hanley was momentarily surprised. Turning his head, he saw the delicate woman, Fairy Xiao. She was also slightly surprised to find Hanley in the same location. However, she quickly smiled and said politely, "Brother Han, I possess 100 bewildering lights flag. It is quite effective for concealment. Would you like me to hide us both?" Hanley smiled faintly. "In that case, I will trouble you. It is a minor matter." "Brother Han is too courteous," she replied with a soft smile. She raised her hand, producing a small snow-white flag. It spun once above them. Forming a seal, she activated the flag. It blurred, releasing a layer of white mist that quickly enveloped them. In the blink of an eye, both the mist and their figures vanished. Hanley remained in place and lifted his hand, observing carefully. Even with his bright-sight spirit eyes, he was unable to detect anything unusual. He spoke with mild admiration. "This treasure is indeed remarkable. It surpasses ordinary concealment techniques." Fairy Xiao shook her head slightly. "Brother Han overpraises it. While the 100 bewildering lights flag excels at visual concealment, it cannot hide from spiritual sense. It is only effective against creatures with weak spiritual awareness, such as these insect beasts." Hanley tested this with his spiritual sense and quickly confirmed her words. He could not help but feel a trace of regret. If the treasure could also conceal spiritual presence, it would be truly formidable. By then, the other cultivators had also hidden themselves and suppressed their auras. Soon, aside from the incense burner floating in the air, there was no sign of anyone. The sandalwood crane incense proved effective. In the time it took to finish a meal, a buzzing sound approached from the mountain. From a hidden cave deep within the mountain, a swarm of large winged ants emerged and flew toward the incense. Each ant was about 1/2 a foot long, with sharp fangs and a pair of green wings on its back. Their appearance was striking, almost resembling flying beasts. It was clear they were drawn by the incense. They soon reached the burner, entering the trap set by the cultivators. At that moment, the air around the incense fluctuated. Senior Jew and the beautiful woman appeared simultaneously. "Attack!" Senior Jew shouted. In an instant, lights erupted from all directions. Dozens of magic treasures appeared, transforming into streams of radiant light as they swept toward the ant swarm. Fireballs, lightning, and other large-scale techniques followed. The cultivators intended to annihilate the ants in a single strike. A series of violent explosions erupted. The swarm was engulfed in multicolored light. Heat and cold surged outward, forming a massive storm at the center of the attack. The force of the blast pushed even the cultivators back several steps. When the light and winds finally subsided, the ants had completely vanished, leaving not even a trace behind. The youthful senior Jew and the beautiful woman were satisfied with this outcome, and the surrounding cultivators shared the same sentiment. For cultivators of their level, dealing with a small swarm of black blood ants was no different from using a butcher's knife to slaughter a chicken. Even so, the smooth completion of the first step of their plan was a favorable sign. Senior Jew raised his hand toward the incense burner. The incense stick was extinguished and returned to him in a streak of yellow light, then disappeared with a flick of his sleeve. In the next moment, a flash of light appeared, and a set of faintly flickering silver flags emerged in his hand. Each flag was only a few inches long. Purple talisman inscriptions and several lightning patterns were engraved on their surfaces, giving them an obscure and profound appearance. Now that the black blood ants no longer pose a threat, we will proceed into the true toad nest. This is the set of profound heavenly lightning flags. Those assigned to the formation step forward and take one. Senior Jew glanced toward the designated cultivators. The selected cultivators exchanged brief looks, then immediately flew forward. Old Man Lu was the first to take a flag. Good. Aside from fellow Taoist Zhao and fellow Taoist Xun, who will remain outside on guard, the rest will follow us inside. The youth pointed at an old man and a middle-aged cultivator before turning into a streak of light and flying into the mountain. The others followed without hesitation, transforming into streaks of light as they entered. As for the two assigned to guard outside, they exchanged wry smiles before concealing themselves. The remaining cultivators followed Senior Jew and the beautiful woman into a natural cave within the massive mountain. After the time it took to drink a cup of tea, Han Li and the others arrived in a damp underground passage. The passage was filled with stalactites dripping water. The ground was slick, and a layer of moss about an inch tall covered the uneven stone floor, spreading throughout the tunnel. Fortunately, the passage was wide enough for cultivators to move through slowly by flight, so they did not need to walk. Han Li occasionally glanced around. From time to time, he saw unusual venomous insects emerging from cracks in the cave walls. With a flick of his finger, he released a thin red thread into the cracks, reducing them to ash. Fairy Xiao was beside him. Her expression remained cautious. A faint layer of white light covered her body. Any venomous insect that approached her instantly fell to the ground, encased in a crystalline layer. It was not only Han Li and Fairy Xiao. The other cultivators were also employing their own methods to keep the insects at bay. Although these insects did not appear remarkable, none of them dared to be careless. In the wilderness, countless strange and unpredictable things could occur. Even an ordinary-looking insect might carry a poison capable of killing a high-grade cultivator. Such incidents were not unheard of. The group focused on moving forward quickly, speaking very little. Before long, complete silence settled over them. Aside from the occasional sound of insects being eliminated, there were no other disturbances. The passage was not entirely dark. At intervals, faint light shone from the walls, resembling the moonlight stones commonly used by mortals. Thus, the group continued forward without issue. After some time, Han Li's expression shifted slightly, and he cast a subtle glance toward the group ahead. At the same moment, Senior Jew, who was leading, frowned. The two spatial tempering cultivators at the front suddenly came to a halt. Senior Jew signaled for everyone to stop. Everyone be cautious. I sense two beasts ahead. Their auras are close to the deity transformation stage, and they are blocking our path. There may also be other insects nearby. It would be inconvenient for me to expend more spiritual sense to probe further. We must send someone ahead to confirm their identity. Be careful and do not attack rashly. The cultivators were startled. Immediately, one person stepped forward. Allow me to take a look. I may not excel in other techniques, but I am confident in my evasion skills. Would Senior Jew entrust this task to me? Senior Jew recognized him and smiled. So it is, Brother Yu. Your wind movement techniques are indeed remarkable. You are precisely the person I had in mind. The one who stepped forward was the old man wearing a bamboo hat. He chuckled softly, and with a gust of wind vanished from sight. His wind movement technique was indeed extraordinary. Silence followed. Many cultivators, thinking of the creatures ahead, could not help but feel a trace of anticipation. After the time it took to finish a meal, a gust of wind appeared where the old man had originally stood. He reappeared without any obvious sign of movement. Had one not been paying attention, they might not have noticed his return. The old man bowed to Senior Jew. I have confirmed it. There are two profound whirlpool beasts ahead. This may be troublesome. Profound whirlpool beasts. The group stirred. Several cultivators showed clear surprise, and even Senior Jew's expression grew serious. Hanley immediately recalled the relevant information. Profound whirlpool beasts were not particularly dangerous under normal circumstances, but in a place like this, they posed a significant problem. They possessed only water and lightning movement techniques. By nature, they were timid and would often flee when threatened. However, they were also known as drum-cry beasts. Upon detecting an enemy, they would emit a loud drum-like sound that could be heard over 100 kilometers, alerting everything within range. Among both human and demon factions, certain sects and experts had domesticated these beasts to serve as alarms in critical locations. If the beasts were not killed instantly, they would alert the entire mountain. At that point, the consequences would be unpredictable. Senior Jew pondered briefly before speaking. This is indeed troublesome. Although I am at the spatial tempering stage, I am not skilled in concealment techniques. Profound whirlpool beasts possess keen spiritual perception and an acute sense of smell. My wife excels in movement techniques and can handle one of them, but we will need another cultivator to deal with the second. His gaze shifted to Old Man Yu. Old Man, you shook his head. I am not suitable. While my wind techniques allow me to approach them silently, their physical bodies are tough. I cannot guarantee a one-strike kill. Senior Jew smiled wryly and turned his attention to the other late deity transformation cultivators. They all frowned. None of them felt completely confident. Since the success of the mission was at stake, no one dared to accept without certainty. The task required both speed and sufficient killing power. Senior Jew's expression darkened. They had prepared for several years. Would everything be hindered by just two insect beasts? Could we not use earth movement techniques to bypass them through the mountain? One cultivator asked hesitantly. If that were possible, we would not need to go to such lengths. This mountain is formed from a massive vein of spirit magnets. It forcibly suppresses and absorbs spiritual power. Flying through it is impossible, but ordinary movement poses no issue as long as you do not attempt to pass through it. A vein of spirit magnets. The group felt a chill upon hearing this. The one who asked the question looked particularly uneasy. For a time no one spoke. Then a calm voice sounded from the rear. Senior Jew, if I can deal with the other beast, will I receive an additional share of the true toad blood? The speaker was Han Li. The delicate woman beside him looked at him in surprise. Senior Jew examined Han Li with some doubt. Oh, fellow Taoist, Han, are you confident? If so, the additional share of true toad blood will be yours. But if you fail... Clearly he regarded Han Li as merely a mid-deity transformation cultivator. Han Li smiled faintly. Senior, rest assured. If I fail, I will bear the responsibility. Senior Jew hesitated for a moment, then nodded. You seem confident. Very well. I will entrust the other beast to you. Whispers spread among the cultivators as they looked at Han Li with varying expressions. Some showed clear skepticism. Senior Jew then addressed Old Man Yu. For safety, fellow Taoist. You will accompany fellow Taoist Han and assist him. Yes, leave it to me, the old man replied without hesitation. Afterward, Senior Jew moved his lips and transmitted a few words to his wife. She formed a hand seal, her body glowing with red light before vanishing. Hanley took out a purple talisman and placed it on his body. Silver runes surged across him and he disappeared. Old man, you transformed into a gust of wind. With the old man leading Han Li and the beautiful woman, advanced for a short while before reaching their destination. They arrived in a broad open area. On the ground lay two plump white insects, quietly feeding on the moss. The two bloated insects were each 6 meters long, their flesh glossy white, resembling enormous larvae. A small head protruded from one end of each body. Not only did they possess 6 small red eyes, but their mouths were filled with unusually large pointed teeth, which they used to chew steadily on the moss. Han Lai remained perfectly concealed. Even a spatial tempering cultivator would have been unable to detect him. Naturally, he had no concern that two insignificant deity transformation stage insects could discover his presence. He calmly floated above one of the creatures and surveyed the surroundings. With his bright sight spirit eyes, he detected the other profound whirlpool beast, along with a faint red silhouette nearby. It was the beautiful woman employing an evasion technique. 10 meters behind her, a vague azure light drifted in the air. Old man. Yu was hiding himself with wind-attributed concealment. Both of them looked around in confusion, completely unable to sense Han Li's presence. Han Li paid them little mind and silently transmitted a few messages to inform them of his location. A trace of astonishment appeared on their faces. The old man flickered over to Han Li's side, though he did not dare approach within 30 meters of the insect beast. From the distance, he maintained it was clear he lacked confidence in keeping himself hidden. The beautiful woman, however, was a spatial tempering cultivator. After briefly showing surprise, she composed herself and moved to within 20 meters of her target. For a time, the three cultivators remained completely still. The only sound in the area was the steady chewing of the insects on the moss. A cold glint flashed in Han Li's eyes. A faint black light gathered in his palm as he extended his hand toward the insect below him. Grey mist shot from his fingers, and within it a small black mountain emerged. The moment it appeared, it descended. The insect beneath reacted immediately. Its body stirred, and in the blink of an eye, it curled into a massive sphere of flesh, emitting blue and white light. But it was already too late. At such close range, the insect was instantly engulfed by the grey light. The profound whirlpool beast continued to flicker with azure and white radiance, but the grey light suppressed it completely. Realizing the situation was dire, the beast began to tremble violently. Formless waves started to emerge from its body, preparing to disperse in all directions. Han Li gave a faint smirk and clenched his outstretched fingers. The grey light suddenly expanded, rustling several times. 8 waves of grey light swept across the beast, absorbing all the pressure fluctuations from its body and dissolving them entirely within the divine essence-fused light. The profound whirlpool beast twisted, attempting to activate further abilities, when a black shadow appeared above its head. A loud explosion followed. The small mountain expanded to 30 meters in height and slammed down onto the immobilized creature. Even so, the creature lived up to its reputation for having a resilient body. Despite the immense pressure, it was not crushed into pulp. It merely continued writhing, struggling to break free. At that moment, Han Li's sleeve trembled, and a ball of silver flames shot forth. A dull thud sounded, and the insect was instantly reduced to ash. The heavenly spirit devouring flames were not something a mere insect beast could withstand. Han Li eliminated the creature in the span of a single breath. Once it was done, he turned to look behind him. Old man, you stood 10 meters away, his expression carrying a trace of astonishment. Han Li's effortless slaying of the profound whirlpool beast had clearly shocked him. Despite his own status as a late deity transformation cultivator, Han Li offered a faint smile before turning his gaze toward the beautiful woman. The other insect beast had already been cleanly cut into 2 halves. She floated above its corpse, a half-foot-long fire-red sword suspended before her. She looked at Han Li with slight surprise. Han Li cupped his hands in greeting toward her, then turned to Old Man Yu. Brother Yu, the 2 insect beasts have been dealt with. Let us report this to Senior Zhu. Of course. Brother Han, Senior Qing. Please wait a moment, old man. Yu replied with a cheerful expression. He shook his sleeve, releasing a sound transmission talisman back along the path they had come from. Shortly afterward, the others hurried over. When the youthful Senior Zhu arrived and heard the account from Old Man Yu, he revealed a satisfied expression. He offered a few words of praise before leading the group onward, no longer lingering. As they continued, Han Li returned to the rear of the group. This time the other cultivators regarded him differently. Few late deity transformation cultivators could confidently claim they could kill a profound whirlpool beast in a single strike. Fairy Ying, veiled as she was, and the delicate Lady Xiao both cast several examining glances toward him. Han Li ignored them and followed silently. Not long after they passed through the passage, it began to curve. The sound of dripping water echoed ahead, and the breeze became damp and unusually cold. Soon an underground river about 100 meters wide appeared before them. Judging from the rushing sound, its current was swift. Everyone listened carefully. Once we cross this river, we will arrive at the true toad nest. I have already explained the situation there. The frogs are not difficult to handle, but the shadow insect beasts are extremely troublesome. We will be relying on you, Senior Ju said, turning from the river to address Han Li and the others with a stern expression. A middle-aged cultivator in yellow robes slapped his chest and declared, "Rest assured, Senior Ju. With the profound heavenly lightning formation, along with Brother Han and Fairy Xiao, the shadow insects will not escape, regardless of their reputation." The other cultivators responsible for carrying the lightning flags echoed his confidence. As for Han Li and Lady Xiao, they merely exchanged a glance and said nothing. Senior Ju nodded in satisfaction. With a wave of his hand, he was the first to cross the river, followed by the beautiful woman. The others quickly followed. Meanwhile, outside the massive mountain within the white fog, the old man and the middle-aged cultivator assigned to guard duty were casually conversing. "Old Zhao, don't you think Senior Ju and the others should have reached the true toad nest by now? Tisk with 2 fully mature blue-eyed true toads, everyone will get a substantial share, even with so many people. Although the young frog's blood is less effective, it still has some use. This journey has been worth it. It's just a pity we were assigned to guard duty. We might end up with the smallest portion of spirit blood," the blue-robed middle-aged man complained. The old man chuckled and replied casually, "It seems fellow Taoist Chun is dissatisfied. Do not assume obtaining benefits from entering the nest will be easy. It is entirely possible that someone may die." The middle-aged cultivator frowned. That seems unlikely. Senior Ju and the others are fully prepared. Everything should proceed smoothly. What danger could there be?" The old man sighed and said lazily, "It appears this is your first time venturing deep into the wilderness. You should remember that nothing ever goes perfectly here. Even as we stand guard, we could be attacked by ancient beasts or foreign beings at the deity transformation or spatial tempering level." The middle-aged cultivator laughed loudly. "Old Zhao, you are exaggerating. This place is so well hidden. How could such a thing happen?" The old man shook his head, about to respond, when his expression suddenly changed. A flash of bright light appeared at the neck of the middle-aged cultivator. In an instant, his head fell away, and a fountain of blood erupted from his neck. Not good. The old man reacted, immediately sensing danger. He shot backward and waved his sleeve, summoning a small azure shield that formed a protective barrier around him. At the same time, he spat out a streak of red light that circled his body. However, these measures were completely ineffective. The space above his head distorted, and a 3-meter-long azure black claw emerged from within it. Moving with terrifying speed, it sliced through his swordlight and defenses before closing tightly. With a miserable scream, the claw crushed the old man into a mass of gore. Even his nascent soul failed to escape. The headless body of the middle-aged cultivator trembled, and a ball of green light shot out from it, a 2-inch nascent soul clutching a badge, fleeing in panic. But before it could travel 100 meters, a cloud of black mist swept over and enveloped it. The light blurred and vanished instantly. Both deity transformation cultivators were destroyed in a single strike. Moments later, black and azure light flickered nearby and 2 figures appeared. One was 30 meters tall, with a dark face, savage fangs, and 2 horns resembling a giant devil. The other stood 3 meters tall, slender and graceful, appearing as a beautiful woman. She held a long pole and a blue axe as tall as herself. Both possessed a pair of scarlet flesh wings inscribed with ancient talismanic patterns that flickered with light, creating a mesmerizing effect as they moved. Not bad. The nascent soul of a deity. Transformation cultivator is quite satisfying, the axe-wielding woman said, glancing at the headless corpse. She licked her lips with a snake-like tongue and added with slight dissatisfaction, "It is somewhat wasteful that you destroyed the other one." The devil-like giant spoke in a deep, rumbling voice. "I only recently broke through my bottleneck. My strength is not yet fully controlled. Besides, it was merely a deity transformation nascent soul. What we seek are the nascent souls of spatial tempering cultivators. Those are truly satisfying. If we can consume a pair of body integration nascent souls, we may advance to Yaksha kings." The young woman interrupted her companion's wandering thoughts. She frowned slightly and said, "Body integration grade cultivators. That would only tell us whether we could even kill one. Even if we joined forces, we wouldn't stand a chance. Enough of this. We have more important matters to attend to. I didn't expect to encounter human cultivators so soon. We should still be half a year away from Deep Heaven City." The horned giant flapped its wings and let out a sinister laugh. "Strange indeed. They are most likely humans searching for treasure. Since we've already killed them, our duty is fulfilled. Even if some escaped, we can leave them to the others behind us. We are only responsible for clear objectives." "That's right. Let's move. The main army will arrive shortly." The beautiful woman nodded with a faint smile. Her figure blurred and vanished at once. The giant let out a loud roar, then swallowed the headless corpse whole. After several heavy chews, it gulped it down, flapped its wings, and disappeared into the sky. Not long after the two foreign beings departed, a strange humming sound emerged from the horizon. At first it was faint, but it gradually grew louder. A single black dot appeared, then two, then three. In the blink of an eye, countless black dots filled the sky like an overwhelming swarm. There were thousands upon thousands of them. They moved with great speed and arrived above the massive mountain almost instantly. Only then did their true forms become clear. They were winged beings similar to the giant and the woman. Their limbs were bare and they wore only minimal coverings. Among them were numerous giants as well as winged women. Wave after wave of these foreign beings swept through the sky without pause. Even after 2 hours, more black dots continued to emerge from the horizon, as if their numbers were inexhaustible. Suddenly, the humming in the air shifted into thunderous reverberations. Colossal shapes soon came into view. They were 2 to 3 kilometers tall, their bodies faintly yellow. Around them floated slowly rotating conical beehive-like structures. In front of these colossi were winged serpents, wrapped in lightning, each with over a dozen heads, pulling them forward at a steady pace. At the sides of the beehives were fully armored winged troops escorting them in formation. Though these creatures appeared cumbersome, their speed was astonishing. As they advanced, storms followed in their wake, dispersing even the dense mist below. The enormous beehives disturbed the white birds hidden within the fog. The birds retaliated, launching volleys of black ice arrows. When the silver-armored foreign beings saw this, they raised their massive blades and cut through the birds like predators among prey, slaughtering most of them in a brief moment. The remaining birds cried out and fled back into the mist. The foreign beings did not pursue. They simply regrouped and continued escorting the towering structures. More of these massive beehives continued to arrive from the horizon. Some were even larger than the others, each seemingly housing a great number of winged beings. After more than 100 such hives had gathered, their arrival ceased. Soon after, groups of strange ancient beasts followed. Some had 3 heads and 2 wings. Others bore a dragon's head and a bird's tail. Many exceeded 300 meters in size, while some were only a meter long. Certain beasts were even controlled by multiple winged beings. Their forms varied greatly with countless species present. As these ancient beasts passed overhead, black streaks of light appeared from the horizon. They were long shuttle-like objects, each around 100 meters in length, with sharply pointed ends. There were roughly 1,000 of them. Their speed was extraordinary. In a blur, they traversed the entire horizon. Moments later, they were gone. The sky cleared briefly, but not long after, light flickered again, and another group of black dots emerged. Any human who witnessed them would feel a chill run through their blood. These winged beings resembled those before them, with ugly males and beautiful females. However, within each group were several massive figures, each over 100 meters tall. They wore gold or silver armor inscribed with ancient talisman patterns. Sharp, bone-like horns protruded from their faces, giving them a demonic appearance. This group moved far more slowly than the others. As they approached, several individuals would break away and dive downward, scattering in different directions. Some even descended into space itself. The two largest beings in the group remained still, floating motionlessly with stiff expressions. Between them hovered a winged figure with a sinister appearance, his arms folded. His wings were several times larger than those of his kin. His eyes glowed faintly gold, and his flesh was a deep crimson. He observed the others coldly as they searched. Soon his golden eyes shifted, settling on a massive mountain below. Not long after, over 100 winged beings returned and stood in formation, appearing obedient. The forward group encountered deity transformation-grade cultivators. "It was near here, correct?" he asked. A young woman stepped forward respectfully. "Sir Mengxiang, the information should be accurate. However, aside from that mountain, we have found no other traces of humans. The mountain appears to contain a vein of spirit magnet stone, which obstructs direct observation." "A vein of spirit magnet stone. That is indeed noteworthy." "Open it," the golden-eyed being said with a sneer. He raised his hand and a crimson light flashed. In an instant it condensed into a pulsating blood-red sphere. He closed his fingers and the sphere spun before shooting forward. A streak of red light burst from his hand, rapidly expanding to an unimaginable size, covering half the sky. He then flipped his palm and waved it casually. A red glow flickered across the peak of the mountain, then faded, leaving it seemingly unchanged. At that moment, the two massive foreign beings raised their arms and unleashed fierce attacks. A tremendous force surged along the line of impact, merging into a unified wave that struck the mountain. A deafening explosion followed. The mountain groaned, and half of it slid away as if cleanly sliced. Inside a vast cave, grey mist flickered around Han Li's body, forming an impenetrable defense. His expression, however, was grim as he stared 20 meters ahead. A large man in grey robes lay split in two, his body submerged in a pool of blood. Beside him was a small flag crackling with lightning. Han Li felt a chill in his heart. Just moments earlier, a red light had flashed at that very spot. The man had been there, and in the next instant he was cleaved in half. The formation created by the flags collapsed immediately, and fist-sized black shadows escaped from the lightning. The other cultivators were stunned, then quickly reacted with alarm and fury. Lady Xiao was equally shaken. Farther within the cave, about 100 meters away, light flashed, followed by a chain of explosions. Senior Zhu and more than a dozen cultivators were attacking the true toad nest. Han Li's thoughts stirred. Just as he prepared to use his divine essence-fused light to capture the 100 shadow insects, preventing their escape, the entire mountain suddenly trembled violently. At the same time, an underground river surged, its waves rising over 30 meters high. The cave began collapsing bit by bit. Realizing the situation, Han Li's expression changed drastically. He quickly formed an incantation gesture, strengthening his protective mist several times over, just as a massive surge of water engulfed him. Within the time it took to brew a cup of tea, more than a dozen streaks of light shot out from the remaining half of the mountain. The light faded, revealing over a dozen figures in mid-air. Senior Zhu and the others glanced around, their faces turning pale. They were surrounded by more than 100 winged foreign beings, all staring at them as if they were prey. Judging by their auras, every one of them was at least at the deity transformation stage. Among them, at least 7 had reached the spatial tempering stage. The golden-eyed being glanced at them and spoke indifferently. "There are quite a few humans, but only 2 at the spatial tempering stage. I have no interest in dealing with you. Kill them. If possible, leave some alive. We will interrogate them." With a single flap of his wings, he vanished, appearing over 300 meters away. After flickering twice, he disappeared completely. Aside from splitting the massive mountain in half, The golden-eyed being took no further action. Senior Jew's expression turned pale. He was unable to discern the cultivation level of the golden-eyed Yaksha. Still holding on to a trace of hope, he spoke Yaksha tribe. Our races have not yet clashed. There was no cause for you to interfere with our treasure hunt. Why have you surrounded us? Attack. The command came from the strongest among the 100 Yakshas, a woman who offered Senior Jew an alluring smile. Yet her voice was cold and without warmth. At once the surrounding Yakshas raised their massive axes and blades. From all directions, fierce streaks of light shot toward the encircled cultivators. The scene mirrored how the human cultivators had previously launched a full assault against the black blood ants. Only now their roles were reversed. Though vastly outnumbered and outmatched, Senior Jew and the others were not willing to fall at the first exchange. In their alarm, they unleashed their most powerful treasures. Multicolored lights clashed as they resisted the incoming barrage with all their strength. Several cultivators activated movement and concealment techniques, blurring through space in attempts to escape. With urgency, Senior Jew flickered and appeared beside the beautiful Yaksha woman. The two pressed their palms together as blue and red light flickered between them. They each spat out a small flag. The flags were densely inscribed with unfamiliar talismanic symbols. The moment they appeared, they shone brightly and merged into one, forming a red-blue barrier that enveloped both of them. At that instant, blade light swept through the air and struck the barrier wildly, leaving streaks of white marks. Explosions rang out as the attacks burst apart. The cultivators managed to hold back the assault briefly with their techniques and treasures. But the defense soon faltered. The attacks broke through and engulfed them completely. Miserable cries followed one after another. Meanwhile, several large blade lights shifted direction, abandoning the main group and striking distant space. White arcs crossed the air as crimson light flashed. Several severed bodies appeared and fell from the sky. Those who had attempted to conceal themselves were still detected by the Yakshas and slain without resistance. At that moment, the light surrounding the cultivators dimmed. From more than 10, only 6 remained. Among them were the 2 spatial tempering cultivators. Their defensive treasure had proven formidable, able to withstand the combined assault of the Yakshas. The others had already been reduced to ashes. However, whether it was the massive flag or the remaining treasures, their radiance had weakened. Fine cracks had appeared across their surfaces. It was evident that they could not endure another attack. Yet having survived the initial strike, none were willing to accept death passively. Senior Jew and the woman gestured toward the large flag before them. It spun, split into 2 once more, and shone brightly. After trembling violently, both flags burst apart. A red wind and a blue wind emerged, soaring into the sky in the blink of an eye. Senior Jew and the woman blurred into streaks of light and merged into the twin gales. Activating their techniques, they transformed the winds into a massive tornado over a kilometer tall. Thunder roared as it surged forward with overwhelming force. Even the savage Yakshas blocking their path showed signs of disorder upon sensing its power. Seeing this, the remaining human cultivators were filled with hope. They immediately followed the advancing storm. They understood clearly this was their final chance at survival. Wherever the red-blue tornado passed, space itself distorted and blurred, revealing its terrifying strength. As it charged toward the Yaksha formation, 2 enormous black shadows suddenly appeared above it. Before anyone could react, 4 explosions resounded. Invisible waves of immense force struck the top of the tornado. The storm shuddered and was forcibly halted. 2 Yakshas, each over 200 meters tall, had appeared at either side of the tornado. Their fists, as large as buildings, smashed down with tremendous force, blocking its advance. Senior Jew and the woman were greatly alarmed. Without hesitation, they poured all their power into the technique. The tornado expanded by nearly half, attempting to break through. However, the 2 giant Yakshas stood like immovable mountains. Red light flickered in their eyes as their arms blurred. Countless after-images appeared as their fists struck repeatedly against the tornado. In a short span, the storm was completely suppressed. Seeing this, the nearby cultivators were filled with despair. They scattered in all directions, attempting to flee. At that moment, sharp sounds tore through the air as countless blade lights descended. The 100 Yakshas unleashed their second wave of attacks. The remaining cultivators were filled with terror. Senior Jew and the woman were pale as paper. A massive explosion erupted, shaking the entire region. Deep underground, Hanli was wrapped in flickering grey light as he rapidly moved forward. A faint silver-grey glow surrounded him, constantly grinding against his protective light and producing faint sparks. His expression was solemn. Although he had not emerged to the surface, he had just felt a tremendous explosion above. Even at such depth, the vibrations were clear. The power behind it was unmistakable. Could it be that the other cultivators had already been annihilated? The thought caused his heart to tighten. When the mountain collapsed along with the underground cavern, the others had been within the spirit magnet vein. They dared not escape through the earth and could only rise to the surface. But with his divine essence-fused light, Han Li could suppress the 5 elements and resist many magnetic restrictions. Thus he had chosen to flee underground. Moreover, at the moment of collapse, his spiritual sense had detected powerful foreign beings above. He had not dared to delay, immediately enveloping himself in the essence-fused light and diving beneath the earth. Shortly after, however, the injured blue-eyed true toads emerged from their underground lair and encountered him. Faced with such an opportunity, he did not hesitate. Ignoring the strain on his magic power, he unleashed multiple abilities and eradicated them, collecting their bodies before continuing on his way. As for the 1,000 heart flowers that Senior Jew sought, he had no time to search. The strength of the spirit magnet vein exceeded his expectations. However, the divine essence-fused light was equally extraordinary. By drawing on the power of the essence-fused mountain, he managed to shield himself from the immense attractive force within the depths. Although the foreign races were formidable, they would not dare pursue him underground, where the spirit magnet vein's influence was strongest. After considering this, Han Li felt somewhat reassured. It was unfortunate that his spiritual sense was suppressed by the vein. Otherwise, he would feel even more secure. As these thoughts passed through his mind, he traveled thousands of kilometers beneath the surface. Gradually, the silver light around him began to fade. Eventually, it disappeared entirely. Han Li's expression shifted slightly. Feeling more at ease, he extended his spiritual sense upward. Above him lay an unfamiliar valley enclosed by 3 mountains, with only a single entrance. Dense vegetation filled the area and nothing appeared unusual. He sensed the presence of foreign beings and ancient beasts. After sweeping the area multiple times and finding nothing amiss, he finally relaxed and rose upward in a streak of azure light. When he emerged, he withdrew his light and hovered 100 meters in the air. As his gaze swept the surroundings, it suddenly fixed on a particular spot. A chill ran through him, freezing him in place. On a massive tree 300 meters away stood 2 tall, sinister Yakshas, each facing a different direction. They possessed enormous wings and stood over 30 meters tall. When they noticed Han Li, surprise appeared on their faces. What shocked Han Li was not their presence, but the fact that he had sensed nothing from them earlier. His spiritual sense had passed over them without detecting anything at all, as though they did not exist. He immediately understood the implication. Their cultivation far surpassed his own. They were most likely Yaksha kings. Han Li instinctively held his breath. As he inwardly cursed his misfortune, the 2 Yakshas did not act. Instead, they continued observing a location about a kilometer away. A flash of light appeared, and a streak of rainbow brilliance shot out from the ground. Another cultivator emerged. Han Li was startled. The figure was a delicate woman standing atop a rainbow jade boat, Lady Xiao. When she saw Han Li, her expression brightened as if she intended to call out. But the moment she noticed the 2 unmoving Yakshas, her face turned pale. One of the Yakshas revealed a peculiar expression and said strange. Judging by their aura, they should be the 2 humans our king detected earlier. Those subordinates are truly useless. They failed such a simple task. The one who spoke was the Yaksha who had split the mountain Mengxiang. It was unclear why he had appeared here. The other Yaksha gave a light chuckle. Indestructible king, there is a spirit magnet nearby. They were able to move underground without being affected. You should not be too harsh on your subordinates. The first Yaksha king snorted coldly. Raising his hand, a cloud of crimson light gathered within his palm. That is no excuse to let them escape. When I return, I will deal with them properly. As for you two, reaching this point shows some ability, but your lives end here. Han Li and Lady Xiao both felt their expressions change. With a sudden rumble of thunder and a surge of wind, a rainbow phoenix phantom and an azure bird phantom emerged from Han Li's back. In a flash, they condensed into a pair of crystalline wings. At the same time, Lady Xiao's small rainbow boat let out a sharp cry. It unfolded and transformed into a five-headed worm. The worm bared its fangs, giving off a fierce presence. The second Yaksha's eyes brightened when he saw their abilities. He quickly called out, "Indestructible king, wait. These humans are not ordinary cultivators. That one possesses the true phantoms of a heavenly phoenix and a kunpeng. The other seems to wield a true dragon variant, containing a fragment of a rainbow worm's soul. Quite unexpected. Chakravarti, what are you implying? Do you intend for me to spare them? And I dislike being addressed by my title. Use my name, Meng Xiang said with a frown. Although the crimson light in his hand faded, his expression remained displeased. Chakravarti gave a soft laugh. That was merely an oversight. Esteemed Meng Xiang, why continue arguing over this? Why not settle our previous dispute with a wager involving these two? A wager? On what? Meng Xiang's gaze shifted slightly, already suspecting the idea. It is simple. We act separately to eliminate them. Whoever succeeds determines the winner, Chakravarti said with a faint, sinister smile. Meng Saw snorted. Two mere deity transformation cultivators. They would fall in a single strike. How do we judge the outcome? Chakravarti spoke calmly, clearly, having prepared his plan. They are not ordinary. Moreover, we will not attack personally. Instead, we release our demented minions and observe how they handle the humans. Meng Xiang paused briefly before nodding. Demented minions? Fine. We will do as you say. Do you fear losing? Chakravarti smiled wider. Turning to Han Li and Lady Xiao, he said coldly, You have heard us. Do not claim we are unfair. We will give you a chance. You may flee 500 kilometers first. After that, our demented minions will pursue you. Remember, you must not separate. If you are more than 50 kilometers apart, we will personally hunt you down. 500 kilometers. Han Li calmly brushed his transparent wings. That is correct, Chakravarti replied. If you fail to reach that distance within the time it takes an incense stick to burn, we will release them regardless. Do not rely on luck. Han Li's eyes flickered. He glanced at Lady Xiao. She forced a faint smile, her complexion recovering slightly. The expression softened her delicate features. Fellow Taoist, Xiao, let us go, Han Li said after a brief silence. His wings moved and his figure vanished. In the next moment, he appeared 300 meters away through a spatial shift. Shortly after, Lady Xiao followed in a blur, riding atop the five-headed worm. Seeing Han Li's precise use of teleportation, the two Yakshas exchanged a glance. A trace of surprise appeared, but it quickly disappeared. Lady Xiao was equally astonished, though a hint of relief appeared in her expression. Since they were fleeing together, Han Li's ability greatly increased their chances. Without speaking further, she directed the five-headed worm forward. The worm swayed its heads and released a rainbow mist that enveloped them. Their speed surged dramatically, and within a few breaths, they vanished into the distance. The two Yaksha kings remained where they stood, watching without emotion, as though completely confident in their demented minions. Lady Xiao initially drove the rainbow light at extreme speed, intending to reach the 500 kilometers as quickly as possible. However, recalling the time limit given, she slowed down after traveling 50 kilometers. She then tapped her waist and produced a snow-white jade pendant. It transformed into a layer of white mist that enveloped them. This pendant is formed from the purest yang energy. Even Yaksha kings at the body integration stage cannot overhear us. Lady Xiao explained quickly. Though worry remained on her face, Hanli's lips curved slightly. "What do you wish to discuss? Our chances of survival are quite low." Lady Xiao hesitated before asking, "Can you estimate the strength of those Yaksha kings?" Hanli answered calmly, "At minimum, they are equivalent to body integration cultivators. I cannot determine their exact strength, but compared to the silver-tier wood spirit I encountered before, these two are far stronger. They are likely not ordinary." Lady Xiao's expression tightened. "Then they may be greater Yaksha kings. Even if not, they are likely close," Han Li replied. Her face grew more troubled. Han Li then asked, "Do you know what these demented minions are? They seem confident in them." Lady Xiao nodded slightly. "I have heard of them from my sect elders. They are beings that are half ghost and half demon, cultivated by Yaksha after reaching the king level. They are fed with the Yaksha king's blood essence and inherit a portion of their true power. Their strength varies, but they can possess anywhere from a tenth to a third of a Yaksha king's ability. They are extremely dangerous. If those two are truly greater Yaksha kings, then we have no chance." Han Li's expression shifted upon hearing this. Lady Xiao continued quietly, "Given the situation, we should exchange details of our abilities and cooperate to face them." Han Li frowned. "Do you intend to fight these demented minions directly?" She paused. "If we cannot repel them, how can we escape?" Han Li exhaled slowly. "Did you not hear what they said? If their minions pursue us, it is preferable to facing them personally. They made no promise of survival. This is merely a game to them." Her expression changed, realizing she had overlooked this. "Then what do you suggest?" She asked, her gaze fixed on him. Han Li shook his head slightly. "I have no concrete plan. We proceed step by step. If the minions are as strong as you described, we cannot defeat them. Even so, we may still be able to escape. The real issue is avoiding the attention of the Yaksha kings. Unless our cultivation suddenly rises to the body integration stage, it is impossible. Perhaps if we find a nearby teleportation formation and travel a vast distance, we might escape." Lady Xiao's expression turned somewhat strange. Han Li sighed. "Still, your suggestion has merit. We should exchange information about our abilities. Whether we fight or flee, it will improve our chances." Lady Xiao gave a faint, bitter smile and began explaining her techniques and treasures. By the time it took to finish a cup of tea, they had nearly reached the 500-kilometer distance, even at their reduced speed. At that moment, from far behind them, two wolf-like howls echoed through the sky. Within the five-colored light, the woman surnamed Xiao was speaking with Han Li. The moment the strange howl sounded, her expression tightened. She immediately formed a hand seal, causing the surrounding five-colored radiance to flare brightly before vanishing together with both of them. Their flight speed instantly increased to 2 or even 3 times its previous level. Han Li remained silent, his eyes slightly narrowed as he sensed the surroundings, allowing the woman to lead the way. Despite their greatly increased speed, the howls from behind became clearer after they had traveled several hundred kilometers. Han Li spoke calmly. "Those two are less than 150 kilometers behind us. Their speed exceeds ours, so confrontation is inevitable. We should engage them as far away from the two Yaksha monarchs as possible. I will assist you." As he spoke, one of the wings on his back flickered. The projection of a massive azure bird emerged and instantly merged into the five-colored light surrounding them. The entire sphere of light trembled violently, and their speed increased once more by nearly double, turning them into a faint blur streaking through the sky. "Thank you, Brother Han," the woman said with visible relief. Han Li shook his head slightly. "This technique consumes a great deal of energy. I cannot sustain it for long. Also, we cannot distance ourselves too far, or the two Yaksha monarchs may intervene." "Understood. You should conserve your strength for the battle ahead," she replied with a nod. Han Li gave a faint, wry smile but said nothing further. In truth, even if those deranged minions were powerful, he could force one back or even destroy it by risking damage to his spiritual sense and releasing several hundred gold-devouring beetles at once. However, there were two of them, and with the Yaksha monarchs observing such a reckless method was not an option. With Han Li's assistance, the two pursuing minions were unable to close the distance, despite their frightening speed. They continued for several thousand kilometers in what felt like an instant. At an appropriate moment, Han Li withdrew the azure bird projection. He and the woman came to a stop mid-air, hovering silently as they stared into the distance. Moments later, flames erupted far away. Two crimson clouds, each several dozen feet wide, shot toward them like lightning accompanied by thunderous roars. Han Li rubbed his hands together and raised them. Two loud thunderclaps rang out as thick bolts of golden lightning shot directly toward the incoming clouds. However, the crimson clouds appeared insubstantial and moved with extreme agility, easily evading the lightning without slowing at all. Han Li's expression darkened. With a quick hand seal, the golden lightning arcs shifted direction like spirit snakes and struck the clouds from unexpected angles. Yet the result caused his heart to sink. The lightning simply vanished upon contact, leaving the clouds completely unharmed. His expression changed drastically. The crimson clouds closed to within 200 feet, and a strong stench of blood and decay filled the air. Han Li remained motionless. Beside him, the woman's expression turned cold as she activated her technique. Two worms, each about 10 feet long, surged from the five-colored light and bit into the crimson clouds, tearing away half of each. The remaining portions of the clouds dissipated, and the woman showed a hint of satisfaction. She was about to speak when Han Li's pupils contracted sharply. "Be careful. They are extremely fast. Do not be deceived," he warned. "What?" she asked, startled, quickly, looking in the direction he indicated. Several hundred feet away, two crimson creatures hovered in the air. They resembled a fusion of wolf and ape, with bat-like wings on their backs. Their bodies were bright red, their tongues forked like snakes, and their eyes glowed with a cunning, vicious light. These were clearly intelligent beings, the deranged minions. When the clouds had been destroyed, they had already escaped using their incredible speed. Their silent movements and rapid evasion had deceived the woman, but Han Li's bright sight spirit eyes saw through them instantly. Although she had heard of such creatures, seeing them in person sent a chill through her. "My divine devilbane lightning has no effect on them. That suggests they are not of a devilish nature. Yang attribute attacks will likely be ineffective. We will have to confront them directly," Han Li said calmly, placing a hand behind his head. Grey light erupted and formed a barrier around his body. At the same time, a small black mountain emerged within the light. The woman grew serious. As she chanted, space before her trembled violently. The five-headed Wyram reappeared, now several times larger than before. The spirit-like worm raised its heads and growled toward the minions above. At that moment, one of the minions moved first. Its crimson wings flapped, and its body became a blur before vanishing instantly. A flash of red light followed as it appeared directly above them and descended without hesitation. The five worm heads lunged upward to intercept it. Yet the minion's body swayed and vanished like dissolving liquid. The worm heads bit into empty air. Before it could react, thin crimson lines appeared across the worm's body and vanished just as quickly. In the next instant, the entire worm shattered into countless fragments without warning. It had been destroyed almost instantly. Crimson light flickered again, and countless thin lines reappeared, descending toward the woman. Han Li let out a cold snort. The grey barrier expanded, instantly shielding her. At the same time, the small black mountain flashed and appeared above her. The crimson lines cut through the grey light without resistance and struck the mountain. At nearly the same moment, space fluctuated in front of Han Li. A faint crimson shadow emerged. Two sharp claws extended silently through the air. Within the shadow, a pair of cunning eyes gleamed coldly. The second minion had used the distraction to approach unnoticed and launched a sneak attack. Even Han Li's spiritual sense failed to detect it. By the time the claws struck the grey barrier, evasion was no longer possible. Claw projections tore through the barrier and shot toward his back like lightning. Only then did Han Li react. With a shout, a robe of golden and silver lightning appeared over his body. Thunder roared as arcs of lightning burst outward, colliding with the claw projections. The arms of the minion began to char and smoke under the lightning's impact. Yet the claws themselves pressed forward as if indestructible, piercing through the lightning toward Han Li. At that moment, 4 indistinct golden arms emerged from Han Li's back and struck casually toward the claws. Though they moved later, they seized the initiative, intercepting the attack. A sharp metallic screech rang out as they clashed. Crimson light flashed. The golden arms shattered, but the brief delay allowed Han Li to escape, transforming into a streak of white light. Over 200 feet away, he reappeared, his expression dark as he assessed the minion. The creature seemed surprised. Its ambush had failed, its eyes shifting slightly. Meanwhile, the woman retreated several hundred feet as the divine essence-fused mountain protected her from the crimson threads. Those threads gathered together, reforming the second minion, which stared at her with a ferocious gaze. The 2 minions had clearly chosen their targets. "Proceed according to the plan," Han Li said. "Understood," the woman replied without hesitation. She flipped her hand, summoning a disc. White light flashed from her other hand as she struck it. A series of sounds followed as 36 small flags appeared more than 1,000 feet away, forming a circle with the minions at its center. Initially, each flag was only an inch tall. However, they rapidly expanded to over 100 feet in size. Runes shimmered across their surfaces, and each flag emitted powerful spiritual chi. At nearly the same moment, Han Li formed a hand seal. Golden threads appeared among the flags, shimmering as they rapidly converged toward the minions with precise intent. Han Li and the woman had already arranged those formation flags in advance. At this moment, they chose to activate them. The exact effects of the flags were still unknown, but the aureate sword formation alone was already sufficient to trap the 2 demented minions instantly. One of the minions paused upon seeing this, then a vicious glint flashed through its eyes. Its limbs moved with explosive force, and it vanished into a faint crimson shadow, attempting to break free from the sword formation. Clearly, with its high level of intelligence, it had already judged that remaining here any longer would be disadvantageous. However, escaping the aureate sword formation was far from simple. Despite its speed, several hundred golden threads suddenly manifested along its path and swept toward it. Fragments of crimson flesh burst from empty space, then rapidly gathered and reformed into the minion's body. Before it could attempt another escape, golden light flashed around it. Countless threads appeared again, converging at astonishing speed. With another flash, the minion was cut into countless pieces once more. A series of dull thuds followed as the fragments detonated, turning into a cloud of blood mist that drifted toward the edge of the formation. Being insubstantial, the mist ignored the surrounding sword threads entirely. At that moment, Han Li stood outside the formation, a cold light flickering in his eyes. The azure bamboo cloud-swarm swords possessed far more than just cutting power. Han Li immediately activated his sword art. The golden threads turned snowy white, releasing waves of glacial chi. Though the mist lacked substance, it began to freeze as the threads passed through it. In the end, the blood mist was completely frozen into a translucent block of ice, unable to move. A thunderous rumble followed. Countless arcs of lightning erupted from the threads. Golden light filled the formation, and the ice shattered into fine powder under the lightning's force. A faint smile appeared on Han Li's face, but it froze in the next instant. The drifting powder suddenly glowed crimson, melting into droplets as red as blood. Before the threads could converge again, the droplets retreated at high speed. In the center of the formation, crimson light gathered, and the minion reappeared. Its aura had dimmed slightly, but not by much. The formation had seemed to destroy it, yet in truth it had inflicted minimal damage. Han Li grew more cautious. He immediately poured more magic power into the formation. Layers of golden threads multiplied rapidly, reaching into the thousands within moments. Their speed more than doubled as they surged toward the center. At this rate, they would strike the minions almost instantly. Han Li glanced at the woman. She had closed her eyes, holding a formation plate while chanting. Whatever she was preparing, clearly required significant time, suggesting considerable power. Meanwhile, the 36 formation flags trembled as countless silver runes surged around them, beveled silver script. Han Li's expression shifted slightly, but he had no time to dwell on it. The second minion suddenly acted. Unlike the first, it had remained still at the center. Now it spread its wings. Dozens of thin crimson tendrils shot out from its body, each stretching dozens of feet. Before Han Li could understand their function, the tendrils lashed violently, forming a dense sphere of whipping projections around it. From afar, it resembled a growing crimson sphere. The sphere quickly collided with the incoming sword threads. Golden and crimson light clashed with a sharp screech. The formation halted the sphere's expansion but could not break through it. Han Li's pupils contracted. He formed a hand seal, and the threads released glacial qi again, converging from all directions. However, his expression soon darkened. The qi was repelled upon contact. Any frost that formed was immediately shaken off by the tendrils' movement. Even the glacial qi proved ineffective. At that moment, more tendrils extended, strengthening the crimson sphere. With increased force, the sphere began pushing back the sword threads. Its expansion accelerated steadily. The first minion followed suit. It transformed into a crimson blur and charged another section of the formation. Tendrils erupted and repeated the same defense. The threads were forced back again. Han Li inhaled sharply. The aureate sword formation alone would not be enough. He flicked his sleeve, producing over a dozen lightning beads, and concealed them while observing intently. At that moment, the woman's chanting ceased. Han Li immediately looked toward her. She had completed her technique. The formation plate radiated golden light with silver runes revolving around her. The sky dimmed and yin winds arose cold and penetrating. Her technique had drawn upon the world's origin qi. A vast power emanated from the plate, sending a chill through Han Li. It reminded him of the Yaksha monarchs. He activated his bright sight spirit eyes and saw golden runes, golden seal text. Even without recognizing them, he knew their significance. Such script was rare even in the spirit realm. The woman smiled faintly, then raised the plate. The plate rotated, forming a golden light sphere. Spiritual pressure surged. Clouds churned. Winds howled. The formation flags roared like dragons and tigers. Multicolored lights gathered into them. 36 beams shot into the sky. A massive formation appeared within the clouds, linking to the plate below. The golden sphere rose to meet it. Han Li was stunned. The woman struggled to maintain control, her strength nearly depleted. The sphere merged into the formation, which expanded to cover the sky. Its pressure forced Han Li to step back. Far away, the Yaksha monarchs sensed it and vanished. At the same time, the minions broke free and charged. Han Li prepared his lightning beads, but beams of white light struck the minions instantly. They vanished. A teleportation formation, Han Li realized. The woman smiled, then suddenly flew toward the sky. Han Li followed without hesitation. Moments later, space distorted nearby. 2 Yaksha monarchs appeared. They roared in fury. One punched from afar, while the other unleashed a sweeping crimson attack.